Happy Sunday, everyone. Okay, let me just make sure that I can see who's chatting. I hope you are having an amazing weekend. I know we are, and this is kind of a stressful but exciting weekend because we're getting Dell ready to go to work tomorrow morning. So, new day, new work week, new foods to go with them. Now, one of the things that I have always loved with a steak dinner or with an Italian style dinner is the garlic bread that goes with it. Now, we have a little bit of a disagreement in our house about this because Dell is not a real fan of garlic. So, what do you do when somebody is not a fan of garlic and also not a fan of Parmesan cheese? I know, sounds weird, right? But I'm gonna help you figure that out. Now, we're making my version of a fathead dough. And so this takes a little bit of monotonous work, but not hard work. So let's see if we can't figure out what we're doing. First of all, my coffee this morning, because it is fall, and so this has got gingerbread spice sugar-free syrup from Da Vinci, and it is absolutely delicious. I never ever have this in the summertime. This is a wintertime kind of thing. Okay, now let's get started. The first thing you need is 200 grams of shredded mozzarella cheese. Now, if you don't remember me saying, "Good morning, Mom," if you don't remember me saying, I keep my shredded cheese in the freezer. If you keep it in the fridge and you don't use it quickly enough, it's going to go moldy, and that's a huge waste of money. So throw it in the freezer. You don't need to do anything special to it. Just throw it in the freezer. When you need something for a recipe, just take it out. If it's clumped up a little bit, just break it up. And so we're going to maybe just mix this around. So 200 grams of shredded mozzarella cheese, and to that we are going to add 62 grams of cream cheese. Now we're going to put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and then we're going to stir it. So watch this, 30 seconds. It will magically appear back in front of me. So I want to take some time to talk to you today about what keto is and what it isn't, and how strict you need to be or not be. When you are changing the way you eat, when you are changing your lifestyle, your culinary lifestyle, it's a pretty big step. If you are used to having a high carb diet, just all of a sudden getting rid of all of the carbs might be a real challenge for you, especially if you are a carbohydrate addict. Oh, I hear the beep. I have a feeling it's going to show up back here. Okay, so 30 seconds. You want to stir this every 30 seconds. It's really important because otherwise it will get melty on the bottom and not melty on the top, and that's not what we're after. This is going to be a beautiful, smooth, cheesy lump of cheesiness when it's all done. So another 30 seconds. This is going to take a minute and a half, 2 minutes. One of the things that I hear often from people is, I would love to do keto, but I can't because I couldn't give up my bread. I couldn't give up my pasta. I couldn't give up my fruit. And I know we've had this discussion before, but we're going to have it again. When there is someone in your world that is making choices that you don't understand, and maybe those choices are drinking more than you would like, maybe those choices are doing drugs that you don't approve of. Oh, there goes our 30-second beeper again. And let me grab it. Okay, now we get to see that this is starting to get melty. And the only thing that we have in here right now, and this is important to remember, is just the shredded mozzarella, 200 grams of shredded mozzarella cheese and 62 grams of cream cheese. Okay, so you want to get that mixed as well as you can and back into the microwave for another 30 seconds. Okay, so you have someone in your world, and maybe it's even you. Maybe you're looking at yourself in the mirror and wondering why you do the things that you do. Why is it that you are hiding your carbs from the people that love you? Why is it that you make a point of eating that chocolate bar or those great big bakery cookies on the way home instead of taking them home for your family? The biggest gift that I was given was finding out that carbohydrate addiction is a thing. And that addiction is not an easy one to beat. Oh, here we go. We're going to do this one more time, and you can see that this is getting more and more melty. Now, when you're looking at this and trying to figure out whether or not it is melty enough, if you can see any little shreds of cheese in there, it is not melty enough. And melty is the word of the day, folks. And it needs to go in for another 30 seconds. So you need to understand that carbohydrate addiction is actually a thing. And people who are making choices, whether it's you or someone that you love, that you see as being problematic because they're hiding it, that's the first sign of an addiction. People who are proud of what they do don't feel a need to hide it from anyone around them. And so if that's you, and it most definitely was me, you have to decide whether this is something that you want to battle, and it's a very personal choice. It's a personal choice for everybody, and I really encourage you to recognize that that choice is personal. And even if you don't understand it, when it comes to food especially, it's something that you have to respect their right to make different choices than you do. Okay, now this is, as I'm stirring this, the last few little not melty pieces, the last few shreds are disappearing, and this is now very smooth and beautiful. Okay, so now we have our melty cheese, and I know I said cheese bread, and all I've showed you so far is a bowl of melted cheese. Doesn't seem like cheese bread, does it? Okay, so next thing that we need is 1 egg. Crack that in a separate bowl. Make sure that we don't end up with eggshells in our bread. Okay, now 1 egg, 55 grams of almond flour. Get your kitchen scale out. If you want your recipes to come out exactly the same every time, this is what you want to do. Okay, 55 grams of almond flour, 15 grams of coconut flour. And these are not sifted, they're lumpy in there, but it's not going to matter, and I will show you why. Okay. And then we're going to add half a teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of onion powder. The onion powder part is important because it incorporates in much more nicely. You could use granular onion, but you don't want minced onion or onion flakes, not for this part of it at least. Okay, and then a quarter of a teaspoon of white pepper. Why are we using white pepper? First of all, it's optional. If you really dislike pepper, you don't have to put it in. But we're using white pepper because you're not going to see it in the dough. If you use black pepper, especially if it's a coarse grind, you can end up with little black things in your dough. And a quarter teaspoon of salt. Now, if you want to do this with your bare hands, You absolutely can. I do not. I don't like getting stuff like that under my nails. Although this is not nearly as big a deal for me as meat is. Anybody that hangs out here with me on the weekends knows that I am not a fan of touching raw meat. Okay, now that we've started incorporating the coconut flour, the almond flour, and the spices, we are going to add this egg. When the cheese is really hot, it's not the time to put the egg in. Now, you want to rinse that egg dish out right away because otherwise it's going to get all sticky and dry on there, and it's a lot harder to clean off. If you put the egg in first and the cheese is really hot, you can end up with scrambled eggs in your dough. And we are just going to keep working this and working this and working this. Look at how quickly this is coming together, guys. So we went from just having melty cheese, and you can let it cool a little bit before you start really working it, but the flour and spices and egg that you put in is going to cool it down quite a ways too. This is nice to make if you come in from outside shoveling, you know, that awful white stuff that we're going to be stuck with. And your hands are cold. This is a great way to warm your fingers up. Okay, make sure that this is thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly mixed. And I cannot stress that enough. You don't want a lump of almond flour or coconut flour. Now, if you really dislike coconut flour, you can add an extra 15 grams of almond flour, but the best results are going to be if you follow the recipe, because coconut flour is very absorbent. So any extra moisture that might be in your egg, or maybe since your cheese is frozen, there's a little bit of extra moisture there, that almond or coconut flour is going to absorb that, and you don't need to worry quite as much about the texture of your bread. Now, we are going to take this, now that everything is beautifully incorporated, out of the bowl, and just a sheet pan with parchment paper on it. And if you don't have vinyl gloves and you don't want to use your bare hand, put a piece of saran wrap over top. Now we're going to push this out. We're going to push this out. So it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. So this is not a huge big recipe, more than you probably want to eat in one meal for just one person, but it's still not a huge recipe. It's also not a terribly economical recipe with all the cheese in it, but it is a delicious recipe. And it probably goes without saying, but the oregano and the onion powder and the white pepper are all from TSL Organics. So if you're needing any of those, you can let me know. Now, if you like garlic bread, just switch the onion powder for garlic powder. Now you have garlic bread. And when this comes out of the oven, you can make it more garlicky, or you can add some onion then. Now for right now, we are going to put this in a 420-degree oven for 5 minutes, and we're going to talk about step 2. So I'm just going to throw this off and get rid of this glove now that I don't need to worry about getting anything under my fingernails. And we are going to talk about next steps. So, Alexa, set a 5-minute cheese bread timer.
Cheese bread timer, 5 minutes, starting now.
There you go. It's good that I have my girl here helping me out. And my guy too, actually. So we are going to be, this is the second batch. Now I'm going to show you, while we're waiting for that to come out of the oven, I'm going to show you the batch that we made a little bit earlier. And this is going to be a little different than the one that we're making, only because, I don't know whether you can see or not, but there is some orange in here. Now this is the cheese bread that we made earlier. It is wonderful warm. It is wonderful cold. It will freeze quite nicely, but make sure you put it in your deep freeze, not in the freezer in your fridge, because that'll suck the moisture out of it. Frost-free freezers are not great for stuff like this. So you can make it, set it aside. If you're wanting to warm it up for guests that are arriving, you can put it in your oven and warm it up for a few minutes, or in the microwave. And you can use whatever type of cheese you want. Now, with this one that's coming out of the oven in a couple of minutes, we're going to do something a little different. But this one had mozzarella and Tex-Mex cheese. So the Tex-Mex gives it a little bit of spice, a little bit of a bite, and it gives it that nice cheddar flavor. And so there is option number one. Now for this one that's coming out of the oven, and it comes out of the oven, it goes back in the oven, so it's in the microwave, out of the microwave, back in the microwave. But this time we're going to use 50 grams of shredded mozzarella and 30 grams of Parmesan. So 50 grams of mozza and then 30 grams of whatever other cheese you'd like. It's important to remember that mozzarella, even high-fat mozzarella, doesn't have as much fat as cheddar. And Parm is a very hard cheese that it has fat in it for sure, but it doesn't make things as greasy. Now this is Parmesan petals, and I am going to break these up a little bit. If you have fresh Parm, a brick of fresh Parm, or Grana Padano, or Asiago, or I don't know, pepper jack, what do you have in your fridge? Whatever cheese you want to use, when it's your kitchen, it's your rules. Now you could throw this in the food processor, but I don't want it broken up quite that much. Okay, now we have 2 minutes and 16 seconds left, so I want to keep talking to you about addictions. When people start changing things in their world, oftentimes you will find a difference in their personality. Maybe they get a little bit cranky, maybe they get a little bit weepy, maybe it's both. One way or the other, make sure that you are there to support them. And if it's you that's battling with the addiction, whether it's carbohydrate addiction or whatever addiction it is, make sure that you're gentle with yourself. Now, one of the things about losing weight, about being addicted to food, nobody's addicted to broccoli. Have you ever noticed that? Never ever do you hear about anybody who eats so much broccoli that they end up in trouble. Nobody, not ever. So what is it that we get addicted to? And why is it that we have always said that if people just had more willpower, that's all they need, just more willpower. If they would eat less and exercise more, they wouldn't have the weight issues that they do. They wouldn't have type 2 diabetes. They wouldn't have high blood pressure. They wouldn't have cardiovascular disease. They wouldn't have whatever it is, insert condition here. And here's the thing that you need to know about that. If you are an alcoholic, you can stop drinking. And I'm not suggesting that that's an easy thing to do, but you can. And you can make sure that you are never ever around alcohol again. You can remove it from your home. You can remove it from your life. Never step foot into a liquor store again. Never go to an event where there's alcohol present. You can eliminate that addiction from your life. The same is true with drugs. And regardless of what the drug is, whether it's prescription drugs or whether it's cocaine or meth or whatever drug it is, you can eliminate that from your life. You can make sure that it is never ever around you again. Here's the and our 5 minutes is up. So let's take a peek and see how this is going. Okay. Now, 2 things about this. You see right here, there was a bubble. Alexa, stop. So we are just going to poke that bubble. and ouch, push the steam out of it. Make sure you don't have your fingers over the steam holes. Okay, now 2 things are important. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that you mix the 2 cheeses together if you want them to be evenly distributed, both flavors, over your cheese bread. Now, because this isn't like a cake or muffins or something that has baking powder in it, you can pull this out because of what the ingredients are. You can pull it out of the oven, put it back in the oven, and no harm is done to the making of this onion bread or garlic bread. So what are you going to put in yours? Half onion, half garlic? All onion, all garlic? Okay, now that is mixed up pretty well. Now we are just going to spread this on top of the onion bread that we're making. Onion bread, garlic bread, the cheesy bread. We're making cheesy bread. Now this recipe that I'm assuming that you just wrote down, this is a version, it's my version, of fathead dough, which is delicious, and it's quite low in carbs, but make sure that you're watching. There are 2 tablespoons of coconut flour, or 15 grams, and then 55 grams of almond flour. So if you sat down and ate this whole thing, you want to get the cheese right out to the edge if you can, or almost out to the edge. If you sat down and ate the whole thing, you're going to be getting the carbs from both of those. And then the cream cheese has a little bit of carbs, but still very low carbs compared to any type of bread that you would buy in the store. Now, here's the other thing about this particular type. Now, we're going to send this back to the oven, and we are going to put it in there for another 5 minutes, and then we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. So here's the thing about being addicted to carbohydrates. You cannot stop eating. Well, I mean, you can. People have done it. Alexa, set a 7-minute timer.
7 minutes, starting now.
There you go. She'll keep us on track here. You cannot...
The station my sound.
Alexa, stop. She just has to get the last word in sometimes. You can't stop eating. Your body needs nutrition. And when you have spent however many years you've been on this planet convincing your body that the nutrition that you need is carb heavy, then you need to take some time to re-educate. And that can cause cravings. That can cause withdrawals, basically. And for a very long time, they didn't recognize that there was even a possibility that people could actually be addicted. We had things like Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and whatever, all of these different weight loss programs, and people would do so well. The entire world watched Oprah get thin and then gain weight back, and then get thin and gain weight back. There have been several big names that have had that same journey, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that's not to say that doing low carb you can't gain weight, because I am walking proof that you absolutely can. But what I will tell you is this: this is an addiction that you can only beat if you stop doing the addictive part. Nobody would ever say to an alcoholic, you have a problem with alcohol and you need to quit drinking beer, except for Tuesdays from noon till 6. You can drink beer on Tuesdays from noon till 6. What could possibly go wrong? Because everybody needs to have a cheat day, right? No. No one would ever say that to an alcoholic. No one would ever say to a heroin addict, your life is an absolute mess. You need to quit doing heroin, except for Saturday nights when you're out partying with your friends. You can do heroin then. Or maybe, heroin one Saturday, cocaine the next Saturday. That's not a thing. People go into recovery so that they can Deal with the withdrawals, deal with the cravings, deal with the impulses. And once you get clean, the only way to stay clean is to not do it again. But what do you do when you can't do that? What do you do when it's food and you have to do it? And I have something ringing somewhere. I don't know where it is, but when it's food, you have to do it a different way. You have to eliminate the thing that's causing the cravings as much as you possibly can. And the thing that is causing the cravings is going to be flour or sugar or some other type of grain. That's just a thing. Or starch. I've heard many people say, I am addicted to potatoes. I could not have a meal without doing potatoes. I have got this weird little ringy thing happening. I think somebody is maybe trying to get hold of me on Facebook, so I will deal with that later. When you have a carbohydrate addiction, and check in with yourself, are you eating carbs mindlessly? Are you hiding things from people? Are you not even being honest with yourself? Because that is absolutely a thing. Then you need to look at what you can do to deal with that addiction, and you need to recognize that it has nothing to do with willpower. It is not all things in moderation. Chocolate cake in moderation for a carbohydrate addict is not a thing. Cookies in moderation for a carbohydrate addict is not a thing. Neither are potatoes, neither is pasta or bread. Those kinds of things just are going to trigger cravings all the time. I know this because I've experienced it. So, what do? You find new healthy ways to eat it. So you come and hang out here, and a few things are going to happen. So the withdrawals that we go through when you're a carb addict are having cravings for starches or sugars or grains, whatever carb is your drug of choice. But the other thing is that you look for and you find new ways to find the things that you really enjoy. And so if bread is one of those things that you need, you have to have your garlic bread when you make keto lasagna, low carb lasagna. Well, now you've got garlic bread or onion bread. Now we should be almost ready to come out of the oven. We've got another 2 minutes. You know what? I'm just going to take a quick peek and see if we can look at this right now. Oh yeah, I think we're going to come out of the oven right now. Now check this out. It is all beautiful and melty and delicious. There you go. Now this is not quite the same color as the other one because it doesn't have cheddar on it, so the fat content is going to be a little bit different. But this is going to be absolutely beautiful. Sprinkle a little bit of fresh basil on top, a little bit of fresh parsley on top. Let it cool first or they'll just wilt. But this is going to be absolutely beautiful, and I will show you how you cut this up. Get this hot pan out of our way. Now, you want to get this off the hot pan as quickly as possible because sitting on that hot pan, it's going to sweat. And we don't want it to sweat. If you have a marble cutting board, by all means, throw it on the marble cutting board. Now, you can do this whatever way you like. Your kitchen, your rules. And I am just going to move this a little bit further away because I know me and I am going to end up burning myself on that pan. There we go. It is out of the way. Now, we're going to cut this. Whoops. Well, that was almost an accident. The pan almost hit the floor. That would have been a nice big noise. Okay, we are going to cut this lengthways. Now, you'll notice when I pressed this out, I made it kind of an oval, and that was intentional. And then we are just going to cut it in about 1-inch pieces. Alexa, stop. So these are about 1-inch strips all the way down. And once you get them all cut and they cool a little bit or not, it's up to you, you can serve these to your guests. That is absolutely delicious. And yes, you can absolutely use this for pizza. There isn't a reason in the world that you can't. The difference would be you're going to leave the cheese. In my world, I do not understand why these pizza places started putting the cheese on the bottom, but I don't like it. I like the cheese on the top. So I would put whatever sauce I'm going to put on here. It wouldn't be a tomato-based sauce for me because tomatoes and I don't get along really well. I love them. They don't love me so much. So yes, you could use this for a pizza dough. There is no reason in the world that you couldn't. And you can make this and have it cool, freeze it, and bring it out when you need a pizza crust. So that's an option too. But again, make sure you know how many carbs you're eating. If you're eating this as a meal, you've got to remember that you're getting that many carbs because that's about the size of a personal pan pizza. Okay, I have kept you longer than normal today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your Sunday. Please do your very best to live your best version of the shining life and reach out to somebody that you haven't talked to for a while because they're probably wanting to speak with you as well. It will do them a world of good, make their day a little sunnier, and it will make your day sunnier as well. I am going to go and do just exactly that right now, and I may end up having to make another batch of this. We'll see how much Dell's going to leave me when he goes to work. I will see all of you on Friday at noon, and we will do something fun then as well. Have a fantastic